Hi and welcome back to Pay Down Debt Solutions. I'm Jen. Today I want to go over some more about credit cards with you. We've been getting a lot of questions about credit cards, and I get it. Because if you take a look out there, you guys, you notice that credit cards are one of the #1 debts that people have out there. There's lots of credit card debt, and people are looking at credit cards like they're these horrible things. And I 100% disagree with that. I think credit cards are absolutely fantastic, but you have to know how to run them, okay? And so when you run them correctly, when you run them like we do with Velocity Banking through the pay down strategy, okay? When you run your credit cards correctly, you will get yourself out of debt, okay? So credit cards can be a debt elimination tool. They can get you into debt. That is 100% true. That can happen. But if you know what you're doing and you know how to run them correctly, they will get you out of debt. And so I want to talk to you guys today and show you more about how that works. Let's go into credit cards. Let's get more in depth and more in detail about credit cards and how to build your strategy to get yourself out of debt using credit cards, because you can, okay? Now, credit cards eliminate debt. So how do they do that, right? How? That's a big question. Well, one, when you run them as a financial tool and not a means to make a purchase, right? So you can purchase with them, absolutely, okay? And that's part of what we do when we run credit card strategies. But we're not using them to just make purchases thinking that that's going to be out there in the future and that we're not going to, be paying them down right away, right? So we're going to change the way we use them by putting our income in, okay? And by putting our income in, that's how we win with credit cards. So when you run them this way, okay, when you run them as a tool and you put all of your income into that credit card, you will change the way the credit card works, okay? And you will actually get your payment that you put on that card will come back to you as cash flow, okay? So part of Velocity Banking, and a big piece of it, is releasing cash flow back to you, gaining cash flow through using credit cards, which will alleviate, that payment for you. And we'll go into that and show you. So on the board today, you will, you don't see any credit card work downs, but you're going to, because I will erase this board later and I'm going to show you some work downs on how you can actually work your credit cards down this way, putting your income in, running your expenses out. We're doing split card strategies, so I can show you when you have multiple cards, how you would handle this and how you would get back that cash flow, all right? Now, and as you can see, #1, it kind of goes up here. So part of how that works is credit cards, when you use them as a financial tool in this way, okay, this is how you're going to get cash back to you and cash flow back to you. So how do you do it then? So let's say you have 3 credit cards in a loan, okay? And we know that credit card 1 here is at $500, credit card 2 here is at $2,600, and we've got credit card 3 here at $1,500, and then we have a loan for $2,200, okay? So we have some debt here that we want to clean up, and so what can we do? How can we move our balances? If you don't have means, any other means like a personal line of credit that you can put them on, consolidate them with, sometimes you can consolidate them onto a credit card, okay? So how then do you move these balances? As you can see, I've moved over the $6,800 onto this debt destroyer, this card here. We're gonna say that it was at $8,500 limit, and that actually goes along with a student scenario that a student I was talking to about this kind of balance exactly, all right? So how do you move your balances, right? So what are the ways that we can do that? Well, there's a couple different ways you can do it, and it all kind of depends on your credit, all right? So one, you can call and ask for convenience checks. So you can call your credit card company. So this person would call their credit card company and they would ask if there's convenience checks available to them or if they can get convenience checks. Now, if they don't have a 0% offer available to them at the time, they can sometimes get convenience checks at the interest rate of their credit card. Or sometimes they might offer them a convenience check at a lower interest rate, maybe not a 0%, but a lower interest rate to encourage you to bring those credit card balances over, okay? So if you've been making payments on time, you're pretty good about making those payments and your credit card's not too bad, then you a lot of times can get access to these convenience checks, okay? So that would be one way you can do that. Sometimes they'll actually offer to transfer those balances immediately for you, which is kind of cool too. So you can either get the checks and do it yourself, or you can have them transfer balances. Now for me, I always like to get the checks, especially if I have something like a loan here, because then what I'm going to do is I'm going to write myself a check for the entire balance of everything, deposit it into my checking account, right? I'm making it out to me, depositing it into my checking account, and then I'm allocating those balances where they go to pay them off, okay? So you would probably need to do that if you have a loan involved, okay? Now 2, you could do it as a cash advance, which we discovered through my cash advance video the other day that I did. So sometimes you can do it as a cash advance, right? So if you have a cash advance option, you only want to do this though if your bank or card issuer doesn't charge you more than what is reasonable or puts that advance on a higher rate. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, sometimes we know that the cash advances, that's kind of a funny word to say. We know that they will come at a higher percentage, or they'll have a convenience type fee, right? An interest rate convenience fee to do so. All right, so they might have a convenience fee, and then when you move them over, they'll be at the same credit or the same interest rate as your card, which is okay. Now, if they come over and they're at a higher interest rate, and then you've got 2 different buckets going on, don't do that. That's kind of a mess. It gets messy, and I would probably advise against that. So try not to do that if you don't have any other options. You don't have any other options, but I would try not to do that, okay? Now, the other thing you could do, and this is thinking outside the box a little bit. So for you business owners, or if you have an LLC and you have some checks, okay? And maybe you have a way to take a credit card processing, maybe you have credit card processing that you take in your business. You could do it this way. So what you would do, okay, again, business owners only here, you could use your card terminal to swipe for the amount of the balance you want to transfer, okay? And so when your card processor settles with you, okay, so gives you that money from the card, you're then going to pay off those cards and move them over. So what does this look like? So if it's me, let's say I want to write a check. Well, let's say I want to pay off these three cards in this loan, okay? So what I would do is if in one of our businesses, okay, let's say it's pay down, and I have a credit card processor, what I'm going to do is type in the amount that I want to pull over, okay? So the $6,800, right? Well, actually it's 500 less, right? Because this is included in there. So it's 6,300. So 6,300 is what I would type in. And I would put my card in, make a payment of $6,300 to my business, okay? Then when that credit card company gives me the cash for those, for what I've collected, right? The collected cash, I then pay off those cards. That is one way you guys can do that as business managers. Now, be careful with that though. That's all I'm gonna say is be careful with that and look into, how those cards are, what the stipulations are on those cards, because I would do that sparingly. But you can do it, and I've seen it done, and I know it because I've watched it happen and I've watched it work out. So that is one way business owners can be tricky and kind of do that on their own. I've heard there's ways to do it with PayPal too. So that's something you can also look into. There are ways to do it with PayPal, but you have to really research it. And actually, Dan and I are in the process of looking into that too. So that's something else you guys can think about, okay? All right, so let's move on to number 2 here. When you strategically structure your bills, okay, to give your income a chance to keep your balance lower for longer. All right, so that's another thing that you guys can do, right? So to help you eliminate debt. When you are using credit cards, all right, and you use credit cards or any line of credit really, but when you do this, okay, you're gonna structure your bills to allow the longest time from statement cut to statement cut, okay? And so here's how this looks. When your deposit comes in, or your quote unquote payment, when that payment comes in, you are then going to be starting at the beginning of the statement, okay, where the statement cuts. You're going to directly deposit that money or make a payment to the card at the beginning of the new statement. And then you are going to stave off your purchases for as long as humanly possible. And sometimes that might even involve changing the due date on some of these bills, okay? And why would you want to do that? Why would you want to go through all that? Well, this is one way to think about it. So if you are staving off, you put your direct deposit in and you're staving off those purchases till towards the end of that statement period, okay? And let's say you move those payments. Your deposit, your income that you put on that card that has dropped your balance on that card remains lower for a longer period of time, right? So from here to here, your balance is lower. Well, maybe you've paid for a little gas and maybe you've done a little groceries in the meantime, but you're going to try to do your biggest payments toward the end of when that statement cuts. Because why? The reason is this will keep your average daily balance lower for a longer period of time, right? And that is what helps us out. Because remember, these credit cards and lines of credit, all lines of credit, why I love them is because they're calculated on an average daily balance, okay? It's just simple interest. It's calculated on an average daily balance. So that means that when you have a balance on it and you put a chunk of income into it, it drops your balance, okay? And your balance remains low until you put your expenses back through, and then it slowly comes back up. Now, it shouldn't come up to here where it was before, right? Because when we're running velocity banking, we're balancing that out so that you're paying it down by whatever cards you've absorbed, right? And you're getting back those payments as cash flow. They become cash flow to you. So when you stave off those purchases towards the end of that statement and your average daily balance remains lower for the longest period of time possible, that means that you're paying less in interest charges, okay? That means you're paying less in interest charges. All right, so then let's take a look at number 3, okay? When you stop being emotional, okay, about your money and run your finances like a business, that is another way credit cards can help you eliminate debt, because you are depositing all of your income, every last penny of your income that is available to you for that credit card, okay, onto your debt destroyer. When you deposit all of your income that is available to you, again, you're lowering your balance, right? You're dropping it, and you're freeing up cash flow, but your interest charges will be less. So stop holding out money so that you have cash, because you've been trained to do that, right? So again, when you leave nothing in your checking account unless it will be used to pay a non-chargeable expense, okay? So there are some some money that you will have to leave in your checking account to pay things that are non-chargeable expenses. Rent, you can't charge. Mortgage, you can't charge. Well, you can, but you probably don't want to, and we'll get into that later. You can't charge other loans and other credit cards. So those payments then would have to be held out of your income. But we take care of that with our multi-card strategy, which I'm going to show you one of those today. So you'll have that back as income to you that you can then divvy up again, okay? So this feels weird at first, right? It feels really weird to have nothing in your checking account and all of your money going to a credit card. It kind of freaks you out. Well, why does it freak you out? Think about it, guys. We've been trained to do this. We've been trained to run things this way. And that's why it feels so weird, okay? But you are going to uncondition yourself, like Pavlov's dog, right? And you guys, those that are my age and older know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You're conditioning. When you ring that bell, right? Dogs start salivating. Same thing when your money goes into your checking account and then all of a sudden it's gone, you freak out because you have no cash. You feel like there's nothing available to you. Well, there is, and it is on the other credit cards you've either freed up for yourself, right? Because you can, almost all things out there are pretty much chargeable. There isn't anything, hardly anything I should say, right, that you need cash for anymore. You guys can do almost everything through a credit card. So you have to uncondition yourself to be nervous about not leaving money in your checking account, because you need your money to go to work for you. And that's what happens when you put your money back on those cards. Okay, you put your deposit or you make a payment back onto those cards. Every last penny is going to work for you. And that's what you need to do, okay? So again, why are we doing all this? Why? Why would we do any of this? Why are we doing any of this? Because credit cards can eliminate debt. They are not evil. They're not a terrible tool. You shouldn't shun them. You shouldn't be afraid of them. You should embrace them. Embrace your credit cards, because they will get you out of debt when you do them and run them correctly, okay? So the road to debt freedom. The road to debt freedom is a credit card, and it's a line of credit. And I'm going to show you now a split card strategy again, so we can go over how this works and what this looks like. So give me a second here and I'll be right back.
And as promised, I am back with our student scenario. And this was a fairly simple student scenario. It was just somebody who wanted a little bit help understanding the whole velocity banking and how velocity banking works. They knew they needed to do this with credit cards because, as you can see, their credit score is a 635. So they're kind of stuck as far as they're not really able to get a personal line of credit at this moment. But when I say stuck, they're really not, are they? Because they have everything they need. And everything they need at this point are their credit cards. Okay, so that's exactly what they have. They have these 4 credit cards, and we are going to run a split card strategy. And we're running the split card strategy so that we can get back some income to us, right? In the form of, cash flow. So those payments that they're making on 2 of the cards that we are going to then split out are going to come back to us so that we can help work down the balances and get them out of their debts faster. Okay, so that's what we're going to work on today. Now, I didn't cover up my screen over here, so you get to see, unfortunately, what their results are, but this is all really telling and really great for you guys to be able to see, because it's a really good work down. Okay, so we have a student scenario. Again, these guys, it was pretty simple. They just needed a little bit of help understanding. They pretty much got the concept, and they just wanted somebody to kind of go over it with them and make sure they were thinking about it in the right way. And so we helped to kind of, guide them, pivot, and then, make some adjustments for them. So here we have an income of $4,400. Their total expenses are $4,300. Their cash flow at this point is $100. They have a mortgage that they're spending $795 on, and they have a car at $503. Okay, so these are 2 debts. We're not going to really work with those today, so I didn't bother listing those out. We're just going to work with the card balances right now. So right now they have a Bank of America, and I put 1 on there because I actually thought they had 2, but they don't. It's just the 1. So anyway, it's Bank of America 1 today. All right. So we have a Bank of America at $2,300. It's at a $46 repayment. I'm sorry, a $46 payment. It's 23%, and it's 14 years to repay $5,400. Okay, so it would take them 14 years to pay this at this $46 payment. Okay, so you guys, make sure you pay attention to that. When you get your statement, look and see when that repayment time frame is, because usually, at least if it's at 1% plus the interest, you're at least getting somewhere a little bit faster. And many of the cards are 1% plus interest. This one clearly is not. Okay, so they're making the minimum payment here. And so it would take 14 years at $5,400 to repay that. Look at that. I mean, that's what? Twice what it is. So, I mean, you guys have to be paying attention to this stuff, or it will take you forever to get out of these debts, right? So Synchrony is at $1,800. That's the balance on it. It is a $45 payment monthly. It is at 29%. Of course it is, because Synchrony is always high, it seems. And it would take them 11 years to pay this back, and it would cost them $4,609 in interest to do so, okay? So again, make sure you guys are paying attention to what your minimum payments are. And if you can't afford to make more, that is why we do velocity banking, because we're going to show you how you can afford to pay these down, okay? Now, they have a Chase card. The balance is $3,600 on that. The payment is $117, and it's at a 27% interest rate at a 4.5 years to pay that back, because that is an interest in 1%. Okay, so the interest in 1% is this payback amount. And the repayment on that after 4.5 years is $2,597. And so then we have Citi, and that's our biggest card. It's at $8,000. It is a $246 payment, okay? And it's at 25% for 4.7 years. Again, that one as well is at interest in 1%. So to pay that back, it's going to be $5,470 over this time frame. So we have as long as 14 years to pay back a Piddly card of $2,300, and we have as short as 4.5 years to pay back a $3,600 payment. So it all depends on what your minimum balance is in order to know, what the time frame for paying it back is. So you guys want to pay attention to that. And there's another detail about repayments that we need to look at too. So your payments that you're making, a lot of people look at the payments and they think, okay, well, if I have, let me just give this example really quick. So if I have an $8,000 payment, or I'm sorry, an $8,000 balance, and my payment is $246, okay, so $246. So like this here, all right, and this is a conversation we actually had with these people. So if I have an $8,000 balance and my payment is $246, so that means that my $246 is going to be going on that card every month. So that means that it's going to be paid back in about 2 something years, right? Okay, so it would be paid back in 32 months if that were the case, right? And actually, that's what these people were looking at. So they said, okay, well, this should be paid off, or I don't understand why it's taking so long to pay this off, because I've been paying this $246 on this balance of $8,000 for 2 years. So why is it not close to being paid off? Well, it's not close to be paid off because we have interest and principal rolled into this payment, right? So we know that based on the interest in 1%, right? So this is the stuff you guys have to pay attention to. And many people actually think this. I know some of you out there are thinking, well, that seems kind of ridiculous because obviously there is interest in that payment. Well, not everybody knows that, okay? So they were thinking this was going to be paid off in, let's see, what, because it says it's 32 if you divide it out, right? So 2.6 years. Well, it clearly was not, because it started at 10,000 and they thought that they would be a lot further along than $8,000, right? So you guys have to pay attention to that. And so you have to know that there is interest built inside of these payments, and that interest is going to interest. It is not going to the principal, and the principal being the 8,000, right? So it's not going to principal. So be very careful and know this, okay? So that's what you want to look at too when you're making these small payments like that. That even in $46, there's interest inside of that payment too, right? So you have to really pay attention to what these cards are doing. So while I love credit cards and they're a fantastic way to work down your debt, okay, they really are, you also need to be wary of them, and you need to understand what each card's, payback amount is, and know that so that you can adjust for it, okay? All right, so I can take that out of there. Sorry, I just wanted to show you because it was a valid complaint that they had, and it was something that they didn't quite understand, okay? All right. So again, we are at, where did I leave off? I don't remember. Maybe Synchrony. Well, we know Synchrony is 1,846. I think I finished them. Yeah. So Citi is at 8,246 is the payment. It's at 25%, 4.7 years, 5,470 to pay that back. So our totals then, right? Our totals. So it would be $18,076 if we let all of these term out over this time frame, okay? Between 14 years being the longest and 4.5 being the shortest, $18,000. For debts that are total, the balance on those debts are $15,700, right? So this is overtaking this by quite a bit. But we are not going to let that happen, because we are going to pay these debts down much quicker by using velocity banking, by using our split card strategy. And that is how we are going to take care of this. So we know that the total amount that they're paying for payments right now is $1,932. All right. So because we're working with credit cards, we know that we have to break this down into chargeable and non-chargeable expenses. Okay. And so the chargeable expenses are the only thing that can go on these cards. The non-chargeables have to be held out into the checking account, and we have to hold out similarly that income, right? We have to hold out that income into our checking account clearly to pay for those charges, right? Or to pay for those bills, sorry, not charges. So what I have here broken down for you is our available income and our chargeable expenses and how we calculate that, all right? So our available income here, okay, again, income is $4,400. So in order to calculate what our available income is to us, we have to then take, all right, so the formula for available income is your income, here, let me write that down for you, is the income, and the income minus, right, our non-chargeables, okay? So our non-chargeable expenses. All right, so we take our income and we subtract out all of the non-chargeables, again, holding them into our checking account so that we can pay for that via the checking account, okay? So we take our $1,400 and we're subtracting out our 46, we're subtracting out our 45, and we are subtracting out our 75, and we are subtracting out our car payment, the 503. Now, I am not, at this point, I am not subtracting out these two. And why am I not doing that? Because those are our debt destroyers, and those we don't have to then hold out of our income, and I'm going to show you, all right? So again, our income minus our non-chargeable expenses at this point, so this one, And we've got, what do we have here? 45.95, the 46. So this one and this one, okay? Because these are our debt destroyers. Now, our chargeable expenses then, right? So we have our 4,300 chargeable. Our 4,300 is our total expenses, all right? So we take our total expenses. So let me find the pen that matches, or the expo that matches, right? So our chargeable expenses, it would be our total income, or total expenses, sorry, minus our non-chargeables. Okay, so our non-chargeable expenses. So that is what our chargeable expenses are. So here we have it. So we have our total expenses are 43. We have to subtract out everything that is non-chargeable, everything. Our 46, our 45, our 117, our city card, right, at 246, our 975, and our 503, okay? And our minus our 503. I know I have it in here. It should be. Let me double check that. Maybe I just didn't write it. Okay, so we'll see. Yep, 2368. So it equals, sorry guys, I forgot to write it on there. I freaked myself out for a minute. All right, so minus 503 as well. Okay, sorry, my bad. All right, so now we have our 2368. Okay, so we have our available income and our chargeable expenses. So now we know we're taking our Chase card, we know we're taking our Citi card. All right, so we're going to then move these out to the side, okay? And we're going to start with the $3,600 Chase balance. We're going to then start with the $8,000 Citi balance. Now, the reason we're doing this is because we need to bring back some of our cash flow, okay? And so we're starting with the largest payment so that we can get the largest amount of cash flow back to us so that we can help work down these balances, all right? So that is what we're starting with. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with these balances, and then we're going to move on to the next as we pay them off, okay? So what we start with again is our Chase card for 36 and our Citi card for 8, all right? And so when we do that, we also have to figure out what our income is that we can afford to put on the card, knowing that we have to hold out money, right, which we've already done. So we get our 2831. And so what I've done is I've split that up based on my cards here, okay? And so sometimes this takes some figuring. So when Dan and I go and we look at strategies for people, we're going to take their chargeables, their non-chargeables, we're going to look at the income, and we're going to try to manipulate it to make it work to your best advantage. And you will do the same for yourself, okay? So in 941, I put on the smaller card, and I did 1890 on the larger card. All right, so then when I did that, when my income came in and hit the card, it dropped me to 2645 on the Chase card and 6,110 on my Citi card, okay? Now our expenses have to come in. And so I split them out again, okay? So we have to then look at the expenses and figure out how we're going to do this. And we know I can't put an expense on here that is larger than my income, can I? If I did that, I'd be running in the wrong direction, right? So my card would be going up instead of down. So I have to be careful of that. The other thing I have to be careful of is this interest rate. This plus this cannot equal more than this, okay? And so we're going to see that it does not. Same thing over here. This plus this cannot equal more than this, or we are going in the wrong direction or making zero headway. So you have to manipulate those numbers to make that fit, okay? And so that's what we've done. We've separated this out to 768 for income. I'm sorry, for chargeable expenses, and for the 1600 on this side for the chargeable expenses. Knowing now that we have our interest rate coming in. Our interest rate for this card here, which is our Chase card, is at 27%. Our interest is 25% here. So now we have to calculate it. Remember, average daily balance. When I was talking about the average daily balance, and I was showing the slide, right, the timeline on when you want to put your expenses on that card, this is where that comes into play here, because when we do this, we have to take our high balance and we have to take our low balance. And look at, I have all these markers in my hand. So we're going to take our high balance and we're going to take our low balance. For all of you newbies out there, we're going to take 3,600. We're going to add it to our 2645, and that's going to give me 6245. I am then going to divide that by 2 to give me the average, which is 3122, and then I'm going to then now multiply that by 0.27, which is my interest rate. So that gives me 843 for the entire year, which I don't want. I only want 1 month. So I divide that by 12, and that gives me my 70, okay? So that's where this number comes from. Again, you're going to do the same thing on this side. You're going to take your 8,000, you're going to add it to your 6110. You're going to divide it by 2. You're going to multiply it by 0.25. You're going to get a number. You're going to divide that by 12. Then we're at 146, and that's where I get the 146 from, okay? So now this is how you start to work down your strategy, right? So are you going to be calculating it like this every month? No, probably not, right? Because you're going to live it. You're going to be inside of it, living it. But when these balances get low enough, you're going to then know when you do the next thing, okay? Now, in this case, we are going to let this run out to 21 months because we have to in this case, all right? So this card takes 21 months. This card is taking 31 months. So we know that at 21 months, we can do something else, right? This now is paid off. So we have paid off in the 21 months, all right? We have paid off our Chase card. So that is gone, all right? So Chase is now done, finito, all done, right? It's gone. So now we have to work with our next card. So we have to look at this and say, okay, so what's the next card I want to work with? Well, typically we're probably going to go for the next highest payment, right? Because we were trying to get those payments back as cash flow. So in this case, I did that. I took the Bank of America card, okay? And we know that at 21 months, the Bank of America card still had a balance, didn't it? Because remember, this is running as long as, so is this, okay? As we're working them all down simultaneously. And so Bank of America has been running for these 21 months, okay? And at 21 months, its balance is at $2,248, all right? So that is where we begin, okay? So we begin knowing that at this balance of the 2248. So now we've also paid in this 21 months of time, $954, okay? So that is the interest that we've paid up until this point. But now it's going to become our debt destroyer, all right? So we then take our balance and we subtract off our income. Now, our income, as you notice, is larger at this point, right, than it was here. Well, why is that? Why is that? You guys know, because here, our payment of the $46, we don't owe it anymore, because once we started putting our income into that debt destroyer, the new debt destroyer, right, this payment comes back to us. So I added that back in, okay? So I don't have to hold it out. Let's put it that way. I don't have to hold it out anymore for my balances. So it comes back to us, and it is now $987. So we're going to run this down now, and we're keeping our expenses the same. They do not change, okay? So as we run this down, this card now, the Bank of America card, is going to take us another 7 months, okay? Sorry, let me get on this side. So it's going to take us 7 months to finish this card. So it's going a little bit faster, right? It's a smaller balance. We have a little bit more income that we're able to work with because it's come back to us. We don't have to hold it out anymore. And so now we're at 7 months, and we've spent $155 in interest to do that. But we also have to add the $954, correct? All right. So now we are at a total of 21 plus 7. Okay, so we're at 28 months. All right. So now at this point in time, our synchrony balance, remember, because synchrony is still running, our synchrony balance here was $1,800, but it is now down to $1,746. Okay, so it's been running all this time. Our balance is $1,746, and we have spent $1,148 in interest on our synchrony card. So we now begin again, and we take, now remember, let me pause for a second. Remember, this is still running. It still has time on it. It's going 31 months. We are at 27 months, 28-ish months, and we now pick up synchrony, and that becomes our debt destroyer, right? Because we've killed this one. We've now killed this one here. We're done with this one, okay? And so now we're on to synchrony, and we have 2 cards left that we're running. All right. So we go ahead, we start at 1746, we subtract out. Now look at what our income is able to be at, right? Because we got back another $45. So we're not holding that out because we don't have to then hold it out and pay for it in our checking account because we are now running our income into this card. So we're at 714. You know, as you once we put our income in, we drop it to 714, but our expenses have to come out, right? And our interest has to come out. So now we're back to $1,511. Now, again, running your checks, and you should be doing this the whole time, every time you make a change, right? Every month. You look at this and say, okay, 1,511, is this higher or lower than what I started with? Well, it's lower. So clearly we're going in the right direction, which is a good thing. All right. Now, to finish this card out, it takes 3 months. It takes us $71 in interest. So where are we? And ironically enough, it has taken 31 months. Okay. So it's taken 31 months to destroy our Synchrony, our Chase, and our Bank of America. Okay. So that's how long it took. And so at that point, we spent $3,232, okay, on these debts, okay, the 3 that we've taken care of. So it took us 94 here. It was 28. Oops, we'll skip this one. 94 here. It was 954 here. It was 155 here, and it was 71 here, and that totals our 3232. Okay, so for those 3. Now, at the same time, pretty much, we have just finished our Citi card. Okay, so our Citi card has run down. Right here has run down, and we are at $2,223 for the Citi card, which means if you add them both together, you're going to come up with $6,055. It has taken 2.5 years to do so, as opposed to spending $18,000. 14 years is our longest term. 4.5 is our shortest term. We destroyed the time on this, didn't we? We got so much time back. And now all of our income is available to do something else with, right? So we can do something else with these payments that we had. I don't know what you guys want to do with it. Anything you want at this point, right? If you want to invest it, invest it. If you want to buy crypto, buy crypto. If you want to go on a vacation, go on a vacation. If you want to buy a horse for your daughter, go buy a horse for your daughter, right? It doesn't matter what you do. It is your prerogative at that point. But why wouldn't you take credit cards? And why do we think they're evil? Because everybody tells us they are, right? They tell us that we get in trouble with these cards and that we don't know how to run our finances. And so we're going to get in all this trouble with them. But not when you know what you're doing, right? And now you guys know what you're doing. Credit cards are debt elimination tools. And I can vouch for that, and I can abide by that because Dan and I did it, right? We did a lot of our debt destroying with credit cards. Hope you guys had a great day. I hope you learned a lot today, and I hope you like and subscribe. If you guys need help or just have a couple questions, you know where to find us, info@paydowndebtsolutions.com. Have an awesome day, and we will see you in the next video.